Hello, Thor, and good day to the SpeedAdmin Academy. We're just about to go live. I hope you're ready out there. If you want to ask any questions during this webinar, you have to be logged into YouTube to ask questions. And of course, you have to be viewing this live. If you're not watching this live, too bad, you missed a chance, but send us an email and we might be able to send the questions on. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm very much looking forward to presenting Bridget Whyte for you all. But first, just a small introduction, because why do we want to talk about music tuition in the UK? A little bit of background. We started with SpeedAdmin in the UK in 2000. I think that was 13 or 15, something like that. We started working with Essex there in 2015. They went probably live in 2017 after we worked really intensively with creating all kind of functionalities for the UK market. And of course, we had been working very, very closely with Essex, what their needs and requirements and how UK music services actually worked. The first thing for us was actually just finding out the whole terms and so on, and that something was called a music service and not just a music school, and that was music and not music and arts like we often experience here in Scandinavia. But then in 2018, we're very much ready, and we had another 5 music services join us, and we found out that they actually did it in 5 other ways than Essex did it. So we were trying to grasp and how did they actually do it over there. And we're still fighting a little bit, but a lot have happened since then. And actually today we are now, over to you Hannah, and Lee not least, present in the UK of course. And where are we today?
Yeah, today we have 55 music service and music schools in the UK. So in the last 3 years, we have doubled in size for the UK market, and the service and schools range from a couple of hundred students all the way up to 17,000 students. So we're based down in the southeast of England, down in the county of Kent. But yes, we remotely help all of our UK schools in the UK.
Great. That means we have people that really knows what it's all about, and I can also mention that both Lee and Hannah also have a background in music services. But we're still, now and then we think, well, how does this actually connect and how does this all work? And we also thought it would be interesting to hear about it from all other countries, how to actually do it in the UK. So we've had a chance to get an amazing guest with us, and this is Bridget Whyte. We'll come back to Bridget in just a second. But Bridget is the CEO for MusicMark, which is the organization. Well, Bridget's going to be talking much more about that in a second. But Bridget have been working for the Arts Council, the Department for Education, British Council, Singapore, all kind of really great organizations. And for the last quite couple of years have now been working for MusicMark and are the CEO. But I'll let Bridget present herself. We think it's a great scoop that we have Bridget joining us. So we hope you get a lot out of this, and we'll learn a lot about the UK music tuition scene. Over to you, Bridget, and a very, very heartily welcome to the SpeedAdmin Academy.
Thank you, Thomas. It's really great to be here, and I hope I can live up to that amazing introduction. I'll do my best. So I'm going to be talking about music tuition in the UK and bridging tradition and innovation, and I've got a sort of guide to how I'm going to go through today. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what MusicMark is. We're going to talk a little bit about why music is so important and how we advocate for it in the UK and overseas as well, of course. We're going to talk about the State of the Union. We are the United Kingdom, and there are 4 separate nations, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to focus in on England, which is the largest area of the country and probably the most complex. We'll talk a little bit about now, and we'll talk about next, and we'll have some time for questions, I hope. I can ramble, so I'm expecting Thomas to shut me up at some point if I'm going on for too long. But let's get started. So,
And
music
I'll
mark.
jump in, Bridget. But as you can all hear, Bridget is the person that you would love to sit next to at a dinner, because she can tell you so much information. So hang on, and I'll be quiet.
Excellent. Thank you, Thomas. And all dinner invites very welcome. Music Mark is a membership organisation and a subject association for music education. Our full name is the UK Association for Music Education - Music Mark. It's a bit of a long-winded title, so we just shorten it to Music Mark. But we have a vision and a mission. And I'm not going to necessarily read these out, but you'll notice particularly so I'll explain. A vision is what we'd like to see in terms of music education in the UK. And the mission is how we as Music Mark will aim to achieve that together with our members. So you'll notice there's 3 key words in the mission which are in our logo. We're there to support, to connect and influence. So what does that really mean? What does that really look like on a day-to-day basis? So in terms of supporting regular communications, training and events, peer-to-peer groups, individual support and so on. Resources, and we support through resources, and please do explore these. If we share the slides where it's got an underline, that's a URL link. We have something called A Common Approach, which is an instrumental and vocal teachers curriculum, and it's a free resource and it's fully available to anybody to use. It was a very big book, but is now an online resource, and it's growing all the time. So please do take a look at A Common Approach. Our influence is around our campaigns and our work with governments and national advocacy. And Talk into Action was a campaign that we ran for about 1.5 years around equity, diversity and inclusion. We're still focused on that, but we've moved on to another campaign, another sort of front-facing campaign called This Is Not a Rehearsal. It's not about performance necessarily, it's about the climate. It's about sustainability in music education and how we as a sector, as music education, need to do our part in terms of the climate crisis. So you can find out more about all about Music Mark on our website, and there's lots of resources and useful stuff that you might want to look at going forward. But let's get on to looking at what the UK is all about. And I'm hoping I'm going on to another slide. There's the website, an image of the website. So moving on. Why music? Why is music so powerful? Well, music is amazing. It does amazing things. And Thomas talked about me having worked with the British Council and worked overseas. I took all the research that we have that supports the fact that music can be really good as a subject, but also as a tool for learning, for development, and so on. So we talk about in England, we talk about in the UK rather, we talk about music for music's sake. It's a really important subject to study, but we also talk about music for goodness sake, all the wider benefits of learning to play an instrument, to sing, to create music, and make music with others. On the left-hand side are some quotes from young people. This is what young people think about music. It's a very, very powerful tool for them. And this report, which was produced by another national organisation called Youth Music, is definitely worth a read if you want to develop your language around advocacy for music education. And also at the bottom of the screen, in quite small writing, is some information about an academic review on the power of music by Dr. Susan Hallam and Evangelos. And it's worth having a look at that too. This is part of the tools that the suitcase of stuff that I take with me in my advocacy work. So please do take a look at that if you're interested in thinking more about the power of music. But let's have a quick chat about what's going on across the UK. The UK has seen some significant change and challenge, like most countries, much of which isn't actually directly about education and or music, but has an impact on what we do. The music education space, there's 2 national plans, one for Wales and one for England. They were both published in 2022. And in Scotland, We Make Music Scotland has developed a key coordinating and networking role in Scotland. In the education space, there has been a significant challenges since the pandemic in terms of pupil attendance and well-being, teacher workforce shortages, with many leaving the profession, and even school building problems due to a lack of investment over many years. And you may have heard about some problems with a type of concrete called rack, which has closed some classrooms in quite a few schools last year. More broadly, various things are and will have an impact on music education in the UK, or significantly in England. Financial challenges faced by government nationally, regionally and locally, as well as the financial crisis for parents and schools, which is having an impact on music education and education more broadly. The impact of the climate crisis, we talked about, this is not a rehearsal, but the climate crisis has an impact on communities. We're seeing flooding already this year, and we're only just getting into what we would consider a wet season, which is our autumn, winter and spring. Well, summer as well. But also the need to consider our individual and organisational and country response to lowering our carbon footprint. What are we going to do to help mitigate for all this climate challenge? And of course, we've had a general election here in the UK. A change of government means a change in policies and priorities. Most will only have an impact on England around education and the arts, as this is a devolved area of government to the other nations. So the Welsh government, the Scottish government and the Northern Ireland Assembly will control what goes on in education in those countries and in terms of culture and the arts in those countries. And in England, one of the key changes is going to be a curriculum review, which has already started, but it will report this time next year and be implemented the year after. So change is already happening, but will continue into 2025 and beyond, and we need to be ready for that. And there's also a significant report and proposals for music education which will have a significant change. That Creating Growth report that's in this image, a set of images, this is a report from March, before Labour were appointed as a new government, but they've continued, they put some of the areas around music education into their manifesto, and they're already continuing to talk about that now they're in power. So let's have a quick look at what's going on across the nations. So this slide gives you an indication of the size of each nation in the populations at the bottom. So London's population is larger than Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales combined almost. So bear that in mind when we go into England. That's why we're going into England. It's a significant land mass, but it's also a significant population. But let's have a quick look across the country. So across the UK, the school systems are slightly different, but musical learning, including instrumental learning, is part of the curriculum for children to study at school. There are some schools in England where teaching is limited and access to music as a school subject beyond 14 is not available, but the new government are making statements which indicate that this won't be possible in the future. So, theoretically, a child can study music in school to achieve qualifications at 16 and 18 through that study, as well as doing practical and theory exams outside school, and that is the case across the UK. In Scotland, every local authority has a music service that works in schools and provides after-school, weekend and holiday provision, such as ensembles and clubs and so on. Additional funding from government has been found by the Scottish Government to enable free instrumental tuition for all children in state education. That sounds amazing, but there is a real problem with capacity. Number of instruments, number of teachers, but also just the capacity to deliver on that funding. In Aberdeen City alone, there are 3,000 children on a waiting list for free instrumental tuition. So it isn't the answer. It isn't the golden the golden goose which is going to solve everything in Scotland. In Northern Ireland, recently they've moved to having just one education authority across the whole country with one music service. The funding is stable and the provision is being reviewed across the country to ensure it is equitable. So combining 6 local authorities into one has meant for some change in terms of structures and implementation, but that is becoming much more standardised across the country now. In Wales, the National Plan in 2022, plus which included funding for that plan, but also funding for instruments and other resources, has meant a real kickstart to a new era in music education in Wales. And one of the resources is something called Siaranga Cymru. Cymru is Wales in Welsh. As you know, Wales is a bilingual country, and this is a bilingual online resource for schools, which has been really well received and is being used across the country. This is because their national plan fitted with a new national curriculum for Wales, which included creativity elements which music can support. So by bringing in a new plan for music education more broadly and linking it to a new curriculum has really helped to tie it in Wales, and Wales is developing its music education accordingly, which is really exciting. England, as I said, is a slightly larger population and is more diverse in the makeup of education systems and music education provision. I'll give you an example. The funding in Wales, the number of schools and the number of pupils across the whole of Wales are about the same as Greater Manchester. So Greater Manchester is larger than just the city, but yes, the population of Wales, as you can see, is much, much smaller than London. And so our significant population makes it quite a challenge here in England to support. So let's delve in a little bit deeper into England. Now, I love this slide. I love the way it starts with the golden age of music education, this mythical rose-tinted age of music education. Everybody has a different way of saying when it was, the different decision of where it is. A lot of people say it's the 80s or the 70s, but some will go even further back and say the golden age of music education in the UK was ages ago. But in 1998, we saw a refocus on music education because music education dwindled between that golden age, whenever you think it is, to a point in 1998 when the then Secretary of State for Education, who was a Labour minister, stated that every child should have the opportunity to learn a musical instrument. That resulted in new funding and a renewed optimism. There are quite a few things on this timeline, but I'm going to go focus on a couple of key ones. The first is 2003, where it says wider opportunities. This was initially a pilot of 13 projects, but has since become a national programme in England. Indeed, we've seen similar programmes in the other UK nations, including a massive programme in Wales since their new plan was developed and delivered. It stems from the 1998 statement and is the idea that a whole class of typically primary school children of about 8 years old would receive lessons on an instrument or a family of instruments. So, about 30 children, that's a standard primary school class in England, although it can go up to 32, 33 and can be tiny in some of our village primary schools. So approximately 30 children would all learn the same instrument, a ukulele or a violin or a family of instruments, so a set of brass instruments or a set of woodwind instruments. This provision is generally provided by the local music service instrumental teachers and is aimed at providing all children with an initial experience in instrumental learning. It's hoped that this will encourage more children to progress to learning an instrument in small groups and or individually, as well as participating in ensembles, and a lifelong love of music. There are people who don't think this is a good idea because learning the violin in a whole class, well, we can all imagine the sound that would make and the challenge of tuning 30 violins during the lesson, and whether that will turn children off to learning a musical instrument. But it continues to be a model of at least giving a child the chance to hold an instrument and to try and to progress a little way into learning about how to play a musical instrument. The other points I wanted to flag was 2012 and 2024. Various reports in the first decade of the 21st century highlighted a need for a more joined-up approach to musical learning opportunities for each child, recognising that unlike learning maths or geography, it takes a village to support a child to learn music. How does that village work together to support them? Music education hubs were created as a concept of local partnership working for schools, music services, professional orchestras, venues, community musicians, and others working together to ensure the provision was complementary and universal. Simply talking to each other to ensure that one school didn't get 4 separate programs and projects and another didn't get any was a starting point. But also that where a child shows a particular interest, a teacher knows where to go to get them further support. Initially, there were 122 music education hubs across the country. But following the publication of the new national plan in 2022, there was a restructure of the areas a hub would cover. And we are just at the start of re-establishing a new network of 43 music hubs. Slight change in name as well, but there are now 43 music hubs across the country covering larger geographical areas. So Greater Manchester is one of those geographical areas. Yes, that many schools, that many pupils, that much funding, as Wales, but there is this new structure. Going back to my point about government, the plan in England and the restructure were both initiatives of the previous government. It's still business as usual for now, but we're fully aware that the new government will want to put their stamp on education and specifically music education. Not least as our Prime Minister was himself a musician who went through his musical learning in that golden age. He was in the Croydon Youth Orchestra and he went to one of our junior conservatoire departments, the Guildhall School of Music. So what happens next? We can only wait and see, hence 2025? Question mark. But let's have a little bit more about thinking about tradition and innovation. Oh, let's go to tradition first. Apologies. Slight giving away. So the title of this presentation was Tradition and Innovation. I've been working in music education in the UK as well as developing global policy and specific programs in other countries across the world for many years. And it's often hard to see innovation as being innovation, as it develops organically and incrementally. However, let's quickly think about the word tradition. These images on this slide could be seen as representative of traditional music education in the UK. Tradition is now much more diverse, reflecting the diversity of the UK. Teaching electric guitar, taiko drums, and using music technology to enable disabled children to create and play music are all as much of music education in the UK as wind or string ensembles and singing. Music education in the UK has been developing and progressing throughout my time working in it. And we can see that in what is showcased by music services, by schools, and by national organisations across the country. So it's exciting, but it's often we don't think of it as innovation. But what are some of the innovations that I would suggest we could think about now? So many of these things were innovative initially, but by focusing on the child, on their needs and ambitions, has resulted in innovative solutions. So what's next? Well, I think there's more to consider around the use of technology in music education, including AI, but also the way in which we teach. The pandemic taught us that musical learning can happen online, and we need to think about that and whether we can help with addressing access challenges such as rurality. Then there's instrumental design. What can be done to adapt instruments to enable students who want to play an instrument but have a disability? OMI, the one-handed musical instrument charity, is pushing the boundaries around this all the time. And these images on the right-hand side underneath the Music Mart logo are all from the OMI website. A one-handed trombone, a one-handed clarinet, Mimu gloves, which allow people to make music with their hands. And the Linstrument is the bottom one. It looks a bit, I'm not quite sure what it looks like. It looks like a hot plate for a table, perhaps. But it's called a Linstrument, and it enables the making of music. And it's actually a new instrument that's been created. And the latest new instrument to be created is the clarion. I haven't got an image of it here, but please do Google the clarion musical instrument and you might find out more about that, or look at Open Up Music. And we're hoping that the Clarion will become much more embedded into music provision for children with disabilities going forward. And the ABRSM, one of the exam boards, has been working with Open Up Music on Clarion exams. So we're looking not only at the access to the instrument, but also what broader things need to be around the provision of that instrument to make it more mainstream, to make it more about everything you can do. I don't know what else might be in terms of innovation, but probably more innovation in terms of partnerships, ensuring youth voice. We need to hear from children and young people what they want, what their musical aspirations are, what they're learning themselves, and how we can support that learning, and how we can support them in their pipeline into the industry or into a love of music forever. I'm just going to have a little sideline into the Czech Republic, and a great quote I heard from a colleague who runs music centres, coordinates the music centres across the Czech Republic, who said, "We are extremely proud that 95% of the pupils that come through our colleges go on to have a great amateur music making life." And I think that's really important. There will be the 5% who will go into the industry, who will become the next Nicola Benedetti or the next Jess Gillam. But we also have to appreciate the value of musical learning for a lifelong love of musical learning. We're also going to have to think about innovation in terms of the climate crisis and in the recruitment and retention of teachers. But music educators are creative and innovative. They will find a way. So let's think quickly about what's next in the UK for us. In England, as I said, there is a new government, and they have already initiated a curriculum review where they want to put culture front and centre in school education for all children and young people in England. Ofsted is one of 4 bodies that check up on schools, and Ofsted is the England version of that, and there is an Ofsted review that has just been started. We are no longer going to have Ofsted giving one-word judgments on schools, and that will have a significant impact on schools, and it will have a halo effect on music education. And we are desperately hoping for investment in education. We are expecting it. And the education department in England is called the Department of Opportunity now. They're the Department of Education. We are the Department of Opportunity. So what does that mean? Opportunities funding. So we'll be pushing for that. In Wales and Scotland, well, they're waiting their funding settlements for next financial year from Westminster, the national governments in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we hope that there might be more funding, but we're also aware that there are elections in Wales and Northern Ireland, in Wales and Scotland, in 2026, and that will have an impact on music education. If the Scottish National Party do not return to power in 2026, will free instrumental tuition be scrapped? We don't know. And then UK-wide, well, we have a national concern for people well-being, the long-term impact of COVID on education and child development, AI and creativity, a growing industry, a creative industry, great, fantastic, but where's the pipeline? The diversity agenda, those riots, that the images earlier, I didn't talk about them, but obviously we had all the riots in the summer, and we had significant challenge to the nation to think more about the diversity and the cultural diversity of our country, and we need to do more to address that and decolonising our curriculum and our country. And then finally, the climate agenda again. We need to be thinking about that. So we've got a lot to do. I glibly often say music is the answer. What's the challenge you need solved? And that goes back to music for music's sake, but music for goodness sake as well. We have transformed English language learning in Palestine through the World Voice programme that I worked on with the British Council. Every child sings in their English learning in primary school in Palestine, and they have found that that has transformed English language learning in Palestine. So we know it can transform education more broadly. It can transform children's lives more broadly. The music projects such as El Sistema in Venezuela or Batuta in Colombia are transforming the social outlook of children and young people in those countries and across the globe. So music can help with many of the challenges we have. So let's be creative as musicians and think more about that, but also focus in on music as a subject too. So that was a whistle-stop tour. I've done it quite quickly, actually. I do talk very fast. But it's given us lots of time for questions, lots of time for Thomas to ask me to go back and explain something more. But hopefully that's been useful.
It's already a treasure box with lots of jewels in there, Bridget, and a lot of the reports that you refer to is also exciting to dive into. We'll put in the links, of course, and also your slides here. But just going back, I was not surprised, but happily surprised, saying with diving into the challenges for music and arts in England, it's not so much the being relevant as a music service or pupil numbers. It's actually more how can we solve some of the bigger problems in the world. Is that right? Or
it's a mix of both. We need music for music's sake. It is a subject. It should be taught to all children and young people throughout their education, and we believe that's coming in the curriculum review. And English education is quite fragmented because of a way in which it's been structured in the last few years, which allows for autonomy, school autonomy, which means that some schools there isn't music education beyond 14. So we need to push for music education in its own right, but we need to recognise its broader benefits, and sometimes they are the ones that we can use to champion the importance of music in a school, and for schools to invest in music, not just in the classroom but beyond the classroom. So for those after school clubs, for those the choir or the choral ensemble that happens at lunchtime, for providing resources for children and young people to make music. And also it's not about education, but many of our music educators have a commitment to supporting musical learning before school, so preschool and early years music, which is really important. Music learning doesn't start at 5. We need to support musical learning further down, for language learning, for social cohesion, for all the benefits of music beyond it, but also to support it as a thing. But also beyond 18. So how do we support music education in higher and further education, but also for lifelong love of music? And when we've all forgotten our name and where we live and what we have for breakfast, we will still remember all the lyrics to the ABBA songs, which I did at ABBA Voyage at the weekend. You just remember them because of the way the brain works. So we need to recognise the neurological impact of music and champion that, as well as championing the all the content of the dictionary behind me, which some of you may recognise is the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians, which is you just have to open any volume and you learn something new. There is none of us know everything about Mozart, or at least we now know we don't, because they found another piece. So but we also don't know enough about the music of the peoples of Senegal or the tribes of the Amazon. We need to expand our horizons in music for music as well.
I love how you don't see problems and limitations. You just see a lot of possibilities. That's actually what I hear, and I'm really loving that, because that's also rethinking, instead of hanging on to see, well, because now I'm mentoring student numbers. Well, it's always going to be an issue, isn't it? But why get stuck in it and make the big thing, and the big thing we need to talk about, instead of actually looking into all the possibilities that we have? And I love that way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I do wear rose-coloured spectacles quite often, but I regularly take them off, and the Department for Education and other government and non-government organisations can hear me talk about the challenges. There are lots. Funding, the place of music in education, we might get a solution to that. Pupil well-being, pupil attendance. There are many myriad of challenges, but and we need to address those, and no nation has got it perfect, and we all look to each other's nations and go, oh, I'd like a bit of that. But yes, there are plenty of challenges, but we have to stay positive, and we have to hold on to things like the power of music to transform children and young people's lives, to argue our case. That's what we use to advocate for more funding, more teachers, a better curriculum, because we need, and that's what we need to take with us.
Amazing. I'm just going to go back to because you mentioned and touched shortly on the exam boards and exams, and for me, being a Scandinavian, exams is something that's very much to do with school. It's not to do with the music and arts so much. And I know this is a cultural thing, of course. Exams is also used a lot in Iceland, in Finland, somewhat in Switzerland, but the Scandinavians and somewhat Germans as well don't really see that as being a natural part of music education. Could you elaborate a little bit on why that is important in an English perspective, and what purpose does it serve?
Okay, so there are a myriad of exam options. So our instrumental and vocal exam boards. There are, I know of 6 key ones, but there are others as well where you can take graded exams in piano, bass guitar, clarion, or voice, or musical theatre, or jazz, and these can help children and young people to celebrate their progression in instrumental learning. And this is important for many. Not everybody, exams aren't for everybody, instrumental vocal exams aren't for everybody, and it's possible that some children and young people will progress and be brilliant musicians without taking any qualifications as such. But to be to develop their musical understanding more broadly, then there are other ways in which to do that with our theory exams, of course. But schools provide exams in all the curriculum subjects, and music is a curriculum subject, and therefore schools will provide the opportunity for you to study music in more depth across many areas of music: history, repertoire, theory, and so on, and also instrumental learning and composition and creating music, and take an exam in that through school. So you can actually study music without necessarily being proficient on an instrument, and get a qualification in music if it's something you're interested in. So schools provide schools should provide an exam at 16-ish and at 18. They're called GCSEs or BTECs at 16 and A-levels at 18. And these can help you to progress into our conservatoires and our university music departments and other institutes. So yes, there's various pathways to progressing your musical learning, and not every child does it. And some children and young people will go to a conservatoire or a further education institution to study music, having not done exams in school, or not done instrumental or vocal exams. But we see there being a number of ways in which to progress your musical learning, whether that's practical or theoretical.
And I guess I can see how that actually lifts it makes making music and studying music more serious in a good way. It lifts that there's more focus on it. It's not just an after-school leisure activity. It's actually something that you should study on the level of math and English and history, all of these subjects. And I really like that thought.
And
also for the 95%.
Yeah, that 95%, exactly. Music has been in the national curriculum for at least since the 1940s in England and in the UK. So the national curriculum includes music. It is expected that there'll be music in school. We have a challenge in terms of our teacher ability, particularly at primary, where you have generalist teachers and they are not taught. They're not necessarily given the training and support they need to feel confident to teach music. But that's where the broader hub, the broader network of partners can support. So they can go in and support classroom teachers to deliver music education. But it's seen as an important subject and has been for many, many years.
And that partnership, I guess, is key, because a musician or a music teacher is also often very good at their instrument, but probably not at leading a classroom. But that's where the teacher comes in and can be great at that. So the combination there. And the music services in UK are very strongly, or as I understand it and have experienced, very strongly tied up or connected to the schools, actually. Work a lot with the schools, don't they?
Yes, they do, yeah. The majority of music services who are a key part of music hubs across the country work in most of the schools, primaries and secondaries and special schools in their area. Where they don't work in a school, it's because the school has a strong connections with other partners in that local area, whether it's individual teachers or other organisations. But yes, music services will provide. Historically, there's been local education authorities had music advisors that advised schools and provided curricula and resources. That's now handed over to the music service, and there'll be a curriculum lead who will provide support and advice, but they'll also take staff in to provide to run a choir or an orchestra or another kind of ensemble, or to run projects, to introduce children and young people to musical instruments through taking in ensembles and so on. So yes, the music services, it's a service provided to the school. So yes, they have that role, but they also have a role beyond that. So they have a role of supporting the children and young people to expand their horizons through ensembles and activities in music centres. So we have music centres like other nations, but we have a strong, and quite a few of those music centres are in schools, but we have that strong link with the actual school day as well.
I like what you're saying there, because you've got music schools, music centres, a lot of good names, but still music service, that you're delivering that service and you're delivering it actually to everybody, not just those that can afford or have the resources to actually join the music service. But that's also with the wider ups there that you mentioned, started already back in, was it 2001 or 3? Yeah. And I think that's quite amazing.
That word service is quite an interesting one for us to be playing around with at the moment, because Labour have come back in, and one of the think tanks that works with them. So Labour have announced they want a national music education network. But the think tank that's helping to advise them want to go one step further and create a national music service and national music education service. There is a national music service in Wales, and they're looking at whether there should be one in England as well.
Okay.
But they don't mean it quite that there'd be one service that would service every school. There are 26,000 schools in England, state schools in England. But what they mean is a bit like our National Health Service and our National Care Service. So it's about a coordinated approach and an equitable approach to music education. There's a concern about every child. That statement from 1998, are we really making it happen? Well, its capacity is one of the problems with that, but we're trying.
Coordinate and ensure that everybody gets this touch on it. Great.
Yeah.
I'd say quickly, if there's anybody that have any question, feel free to write in the chat. But it's been quite silent right now, so that's fine. But I think we could chat away all day, Bridget. And I'm looking forward to us catching up, of course, because you have the annual conference soon. Perhaps you'll just shortly talk a little bit about that, because for those that don't know about it.
Of course. So Music Mark, the UK Association for Music Education, has been going for 10 years. We are an organisation which was a merge of two other membership organisations into one. And we run an annual conference, obviously, every year. And we even ran one during the pandemic. We did an online conference that year. And our annual conference is an opportunity for everyone who works in the music education sector, the music education ecology, to come together and learn from each other and to chat to each other and to hear some inspirational speakers and inspirational programs are outlined, and to obviously hear some music too. Our industry partners, SpeedAdmin is an extremely valued industry partner and takes a great role in our conference every year, and our other industry partners, instrument suppliers, exam boards, and ensembles will be there to tell everybody about their products and services, but also to hear from colleagues. It's a two-way thing, and it's learning from each other and working together. So we pull that together every year. This year we're in Nottingham at the university in the East Midlands Conference Centre for 2 days, a Monday and a Tuesday, Monday the 18th and Monday the 17th, Tuesday the 18th of November. And we're really excited this year with some great keynotes. We have a theme every year. This year's theme is sustainability in music education. It links to our campaign. This is not a rehearsal, but also thinking about sustainability beyond the environment, sustainability of the workforce, sustainability of organisations, funding, and so on. So we'll be looking at sustainability of education, so progression through. We'll be looking at all those topics over 2 days in Nottingham. It's an in-person conference. We did run them hybrid for a while, but it's now an in-person conference. But we welcome anybody to come and join us at that conference in November, and from across the UK and beyond. So we are very excited about this conference, and you can find out more on our website.
And I can say it's one of the highlights of the SpeedAdmin year is the Music Mark annual conference. It is really great catching up with. It's an amazing network that's there and an amazing program you always put together. It's always very, very inspiring. I'm just going to say we're warming up a little bit for the theme, because our next SpeedAdmin Academy webinar will be, and I think it's on the 8th, you can see that in SpeedAdmin, but at 8th of November, we have another great guest, which is Emil Busk, a local sustainability hero, we call him, founder of WeUse and cleversubstain.dk. Have a look at those, because it's quite interesting what they do, but he's going to dive into the subject with us. Why is sustainability in music and arts tuition industry, why is it important? So it's a little warm up to the conference. Brilliant. Bridget, thank you so much for joining us today. We really enjoyed it, or I enjoyed it a lot. I hope the rest of you out there got a lot out of it. Anything I missed or you want to mention here at the end?
Just to say to whoever's listening, music, the work that you do, if you're in the music education ecology, the work that you do is amazing and transformative for children and young people. Please know that you're doing an amazing thing, and be encouraged that you are part of a global network of great music educators. There are obviously global networks like the International Society of Music Educators, and there are people working to try and ensure a global policy. So coming back to the global work that I've done, I work with the Music Education Policy Group, and we created a set of statements around music education policy, and I'll get Thomas to share that too. Music education. Music should be a right for all children, and it's a UNESCO sole agenda statement. We are providing something all children want, need, and should have access to. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for those beautiful words in the end here, Bridget. I won't ruin anything by saying anything else, but just thank you a lot for participating today. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you so much. Thanks.